the words were, we're going to support you militarily, not just this year and next year, but however long it takes. And it's important that he said that, because this comes a couple of weeks after one of President Zelensky's generals admitted it's a stalemate, this war. And the problem with him admitting it is that that's been used by the Republicans in the Congress, a majority of whom actually want to lower or even stop aid. So it's important for the UK to say, you know, despite all that, we're in for the long haul.
The Foreign Secretary, Lord Cameron. The thing is, if you say Lord Cameron, no one knows who you mean, and then you have to explain. Yes, that David Cameron used to be Prime Minister. Anyway, actually, we'll get onto that in a second. But why? I mean, I suppose it was inevitable, was it, that this would be his first visit?
It was a toss-up between this, excuse me, and him showing up in Israel. And I think when you look at his background, it's not a surprise that he showed up there first. It's quite surprising how quick he got there. And you played that clip there. Yeah, it's from the Ukrainian government, and they've put this rather sort of soft emotional piano music underneath it to sort of say just how important it is. But the words in the clip are the point of the visit, because that's the actual physical statement of intent. However long it takes, we will support you. But of course, it's really backed up if you make the symbolic statement of actually delivering it in person. I mentioned his background, though. Lord Cameron came to power in 2010, I think it was. And Russia invaded Ukraine for the first time in 2013, when he was still prime minister. And he was part of the process of Britain actually really beginning to accelerate training and aid in combating cyber attacks, et cetera, et cetera. So he spent 3 years supporting them. And then out of office, I didn't think it got many headlines last year. He actually drove a van full of supplies all the way to the Polish border.
Yeah.
So, you know, he's got background to this.
Yeah. What do you think he will do differently, if anything?
Very little. You know, the foreign secretaries come and go. British foreign policy remains the same. There's a difference between him and many previous foreign secretaries, say, of the last 15, 20 years, in that he does have that sort of stature to an extent, be able to plough his own furrow. Because since the days of Tony Blair being prime minister, foreign policy, it really is made much more in Downing Street than it is in King Charles Street. But now we have a man who's got a contacts book and a standing in the world, which opens doors. So you know, that is the difference. But the actual policy, no. I mean, the words were, we're going to support you militarily, not just this year and next year, but however long it takes. And it's important that he said that, because this comes a couple of weeks after one of President Zelensky's generals admitted it's a stalemate, this war. And the problem with him admitting it is that that's been used by the Republicans in the Congress, a majority of whom actually want to lower or even stop aid. So it's important for the UK to say, you know, despite all that, we're in for the long haul.
Yeah, and it is true to say that people's attention has been diverted to the Middle East because of what's going on there from Ukraine. How long do you think it's been in a position of a stalemate there?
Probably since, I think you could say it is since probably around July and perhaps August, because the outside nations gave the Ukrainians a lot, not everything they wanted, but a lot for the counteroffensive. And in 5 months of the counteroffensive to date, they've advanced 10 miles. Incredible cost on both sides, which is why I think the guy said it's a stalemate. It doesn't mean that they then come to the table. Putin is on the American clock, by which I mean he's waiting for Trump to come back to the White House, and then he might come to the table, because the Americans will pull support probably from the Ukrainians. So, you know, again, that's the sort of context of why Cameron chose this. I wouldn't be surprised if you see him pop up in Israel relatively soon. By the way, I want to know how he got there, because he was only appointed on Tuesday. He almost certainly set off yesterday because you don't fly to Kyiv, as far as I know. You still fly to the border and then get the train in.
I just want to ask you one very quick question about the Middle East, actually, and David Cameron. He put out a tweet, I think, very much kind of, government line, Israel, self-defense, etc. Is his approach going to be different in any nuanced way when he goes to Israel and meets Benjamin Netanyahu or whoever he meets? He famously said back in 2010, Gaza is an open air prison. I mean, does that not matter? Was that something that people could say is a fact and was said a long time ago?
It does matter. I mean, that's obviously fiercely contested by people who don't agree with the statement and supported by those that do. I would doubt he would go so far as to say that. That would be a little bit out in front of the Prime Minister. And although I did argue that he's, a figure of some stature when it comes to international diplomacy, to be that far out from ahead of the Prime Minister would cause a bit of a split. And you don't really want to be doing that in your first month in office.
No, I suppose not. Tim Marshall, thank you very much. Foreign Affairs Specialist and author, Tim Marshall.